Hello, everyone, and welcome to another brand new week of trading. It is the week beginning the 13th of May 2019. Apologies for the late start. A couple of issues my end, and now rectified, one hopes. Righto, Ash will be joining us shortly. He's in Singapore this week doing the IFP courses, and he will be with us very shortly, as I say. Rightio, let's get into some news actually first.
Hey mate, can you hear me? I think my mic's on. I can't hear you if you're speaking.
Okay, I hope I'm with you again. I can see Ash is in the room. That's good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
I can barely hear you, but I can hear you. Yes.
Ah, this should be better. I was just a little bit further away. I was just getting the TV remote to turn the news down.
Cool. Okay. I've already crashed out of the
of
the Hangout, but I seem to be back.
Okay.
I've got no idea if I can shut this thing down later. That's the only thing. But anyway, we'll just stay here all night and talk about bullshit all night.
We'll be back tomorrow. In fact, it'd be like a week-long marathon, this one.
I'll need some bloody sleep overnight, though. I haven't had that much this weekend, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I was just going to go to Forex Factory, and that's what crashed me out.
Oh, okay. You want me to do that?
And yeah, because I can't get it to load for whatever reason.
Okie dokie, I can do that.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Do you know? It's sometimes I go on YouTube and it crashes me out. I don't know. There must be something in there which is not happy somewhere along the line with one of the algorithms or something. I'm not sure, but
yeah, it could be.
But yeah, Forex Factory might be a bit of another bugged website. I don't know. Right, let's bring it up anyway. Have a look what we got. Been an interesting period really for the FTSE.
I didn't know you were in Singapore today. I thought you were going tomorrow.
No, mate. No. Do you know I came on Saturday because there was a course, and I was able to do it. So that's why I came early. It was brilliant. Actually, mate, I thought of you because it would be a brilliant course for what you're doing as well. Very, very informative.
Yeah, I was blocked out, mate. I wasn't allowed to watch it.
No, nobody is. He doesn't post it up on. But he's going to come to Bali.
Okay.
So you get the chance to watch it there, but it's fascinating stuff. I mean, you and I'll have a chat about it, and I'll go through what he was talking about.
Yeah, great.
From the way I understand it, but yeah, could be of use. Now, do you have my screen?
That's an excellent question, Ash. I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Let me just do this and minimize because that's going to create a problem otherwise. Let's do that and get that out. That's the only problem with the laptop is that I've only got one screen, but even though maybe tomorrow it'd be better because Paul did say that I could use his Zen screen, which would be kind of cool. So I'd have a second monitor. Cool. So this is what we got today, mate. Really interesting over the weekend that Donald Trump has kind of has come out and he's kind of added to the aggression of before previous. He doesn't seem to be too worried about causing more issues over in China between him and China. So that seems to be the news of the day. Even though we got this Forex Factory up, I just looked over it and thought, well, it looks kind of light on news here. But we do.
Yeah, it's all about trade wars, I think, isn't it?
All about trade wars. Yeah, all about trade wars. Doesn't seem to be clearing up. And interesting, really, the FTSE 100 has been fairly stationary. I mean, if we sort of all about trade wars, have a quick look across the board. Let me see what we got here.
Actually, I can't see yours. Now I can. All right, all good.
Yep. Yeah, just a quick look across the board. This is the Nikkei today, and gap down, but again, interesting that it's held at this low here. So there are obviously sort of and there's enough interest down here, enough buyers down here to keep this buoyant, and it's a difficult one because I'm comparing that as I say right across the board. This is the CAC 40, which is the French market, and the French market, if it's going to load, is also gap down. So there's a gap to be filled there. A few gaps in this one actually. Yeah, still a gap up there, but there's a few gaps in this one, and this is this seems to be very much down to Donald Trump. Another quite interesting one. We got the DAX here, which looking along that level there, it's just finding some buyers down here. But back to the FTSE because that is our chart of choice, and where's that hidden? And the FTSE, if I can find it. There it is. FTSE's got a similar kind of picture as we just saw with the Nikkei, where it's finding some buyers down here. A little bit tricky because this level previously, and this is a buy zone. There's no two ways about it that this is an area that but the problem is the trade war spat because I don't know how the market's going to react. It's not really. I'm not too keen ever to trade into weakness when there is something else out there that actually realistically could plummet this market. Now, I don't think it's going to be here. I don't think it would plummet here. I think it's much more likely to come up and actually test an area, which would be somewhere around about this area here. So we haven't even got there. Even when we had a bullish day on Friday, a day that closed above its open on Friday, it still wasn't able to really juice up and get around to these levels. Now, these levels are great levels, and that is the short. And it's an obvious short because we've got the trend line there. We got this previous level of resistance over here, which became support. Now we're through it. That is the area that I'm really interested in. So somewhere around about 110 pips above where we are. The question I've got for myself is, do I just wait for the shorts or do I trade the long here? Because, the market is through and there's another level lower here. May not be quite even quite as low as that. It might be there. In actual fact, that makes that look better, doesn't it? But it's probably there. So there's a level down here which would start then to look like one of my favorite patterns, the head and shoulders. So I would envisage this potentially happening. Maybe that level, maybe the lower level, but somewhere in this area here, I would then be looking for a bounce and then to see if we got something of a right shoulder to play out. So that would be the ideal. Now, for that right shoulder peak, we're looking at the end of May. So there is a suggestion that we grind forward. Interestingly, if the right shoulder does peak out around about the end of May, then June does tend to be one of the worst months for the FTSE. So if we can get a little bit of stabilization, around these areas, and it didn't pop up too fast, I suppose, then I think this area looks even better. If it doesn't test that area for a while, namely the rest of the month, and then it starts to pick up towards the end of the week or so, towards the end of the month, then we're looking at June to be able to trigger the trades in. Obviously, if it starts to pick up, then I would look for the short and just look for it to bounce around a little bit before starting to drop down. But right now, where we are now is the question. Is there a long here, or is it better and safer? Well, it's probably safer to wait. But by the same token, you as a aficionado of contrarian trading, in some respects, maybe it's safer to get in long here because everybody is looking for the short. And it might be that that some of those sellers have got out of the way. This is a fairly aggressive move to the downside, and we have managed to kind of stabilize here. So it is suggesting that the sellers have dried up a little bit. So we could be looking at the long. And the other, obviously, the other aspect of that question is this the price, or are we actually looking at this slightly lower level down here?
Yeah, look, that one looks okay from mine. Is that what, a 4-hour chart or something?
This is the 1 hour chart. Yeah, this is the
1 hour
4
chart.
hour. Yeah.
The only problem with it is there's been really no price action then for the last however many hours, and I can't see the
Yes,
chart.
which is the Asian session, effectively. You know, we've
Yeah,
opened up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So effectively, we don't really have a significant higher low there, and that's what I'd be looking for.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I suppose my concern is that we could be waiting for a higher low when there is a double bottom instead, and that is the problem, because it's not going to be a double bottom, is it? Because of these two. You know, that's the area. And to be quite honest, if we got a little dip down here early doors, that would be a tradable area for me, because that's 20 pips away from where we are now, and that looks a little bit too dangerous. You know, that's quite a long way on an intraday basis, or even if you're thinking of looking for around about 110 pips to the upside, that will represent 20% of the potential movement if we can get a little dip. So I'd quite like a little bit lower. I'd like to see the market open up around about 8 o'clock. Come down to this point here, trade it, and see if we can start to pick up.
Why not? I like the double bottom. I think that's a very good indicator.
Yeah.
Whilst ever that's in play, I think you've got to be thinking there's a chance to play along. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
No
the thing
reason
is, the other aspect of this is that if we go in at half of the normal risk, then we can see if it is going to hold here, and if it doesn't hold here and drops, then we can add the other half here. So, you know, that's the way that I'll be playing. I'll be looking at you know, adding you know, going in here and adding another half here. Or the other option is to add half, to go in half here and then add the other half plus 1 at this point. So you know, it might end up being a 2% trade by the end of it, or if we break it down properly, then it could still be a 1% trade by going in 1/4 of 1% here and going in at 3/4 of 1% here. So we end up with a 1%, but you know, aggregated slightly lower, which means that we don't have to get right back up to this point to make any money.
Cool. We were talking about a currency cross, and you went into the trade on Thursday, and for the life of me, I can't remember what the cross was. Was it Euro CAD or Aussie CAD?
No, it was the Euro pound, wasn't it?
Oh, Euro pound. That's right. Yeah. I'm waiting to go short. Yeah.
It was Euro pound because we had this monthly test here.
Right, that's right. And you got the nice rally there. Did you make any dough?
Yeah, got the nice rally to the upside. I came out at 47, which ended up being, actually it was the high there. That was my order there, because we were looking along this level here, weren't we? We had a few levels there actually, but that was the area that we both marked off. So yeah, there was a little bit of money in there. I didn't put a lot on that one actually, because it was it's because it's currencies. I mean, to be honest, I really shouldn't worry too much about trading currencies when it's the pound involved in it, because I know enough about the pound that would be, you know, make the whole trading scenario a little bit safer. But I'm out anyway, you know. So but this trade has closed up. I think I went for the 47 because it ended up being this horizontal level. I think we did actually pick that out as quite a significant level. My memory just failed me a little bit, but yeah,
mine does too. That's like 4 days ago.
Yes,
4 days ago. Yeah, forget that. I can't remember shit like that.
Yeah, but it was it ended up being a very nice point to come back out anyway. And I think I was lucky, because actually when it went up there, I'd set an order in and I'd left because I was packing or doing something or another. So, but if I'd probably spent a little bit longer at the charts, I probably would have come out here. So I was a little bit fortunate that I'd probably done the analysis to this horizontal level instead, and got it out there.
Yeah, nice little intraday trade. Love it.
Yeah, it was a good intraday trade, wasn't it? And I can't remember. I think we had some bits and pieces from the UK about Theresa May and there being issues, the issues within her party and the confidence within her party, as there always seems to be at the minute. So
Certainly.
that was the reason behind it. But yeah, it was good, mate. I don't know whether I'd have the same confidence to go short here, even though we are at the level, and it does look pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still waiting. There were always two levels for me, and we're in between both. So I'm still waiting.
I mean, this has ended up being a fascinating point, actually, because this area here got shoved straight back down again, creating this morning star here. So the fact that we've got that, I think, is a clear indication that regardless of which way this goes, there are enough sellers, aggressive sellers here, that would probably give this price a real struggle. I think this price is going to struggle to get through at this point. And it's one of those that that if we do manage to get the price action just a little bit higher and take a trade in this area, then we should be able to manage it by just by seeing something of a dip, even if it's a dip to this trend line and then it starts bouncing up again. But we should be able to manage it here if we can get into the high there.
Yeah, I've still got an order. Well, I've cancelled the order because it was the weekend, but the order is almost replaceable, as it were. But I think I'll wait now until we get the break back and go from there, because the second level, I'll just show you that briefly.
Yeah, that'd be good. Let's have a look.
What I'm thinking and what I have been thinking and waiting on.
Screen.
Okay, so as I said, there were two levels that I wanted to trade at. One was as a break back below this trend line, this one here, and the other as a false break back below this trend line. So we got neither at this point, but what we did get, I don't know why that's lost its shape, but weekend, I suppose. But we did get this bar here, and that's the daily bar on Thursday, right? So
Yeah.
on Friday morning, I simply placed an order underneath that bar. I thought it was
Yeah.
very significant signal that perhaps we're going short here. It hasn't happened, of course, and I'm still waiting patiently. I don't know whether I should actually replace that order or wait for the break back and then the retest. Essentially, it would be the same entry.
Yeah.
If I were to do that.
Do you know what? I like that one, and the other thing with that one is that there's probably going to be something that happens that takes you through that level. Because they are in talks at the minute. There seems to be quite a lot of breaks going on in the UK, which in Westminster, which I find a bit shocking. But they keep having all these breaks and not going back to the negotiating table, which they're meant to be doing. But they are talking, and Theresa May supposedly, you literally hear a different story every hour at the minute, where Theresa May's about to be ousted, and then Theresa May's about to do a deal with the EU. So it's very difficult to ascertain, what the confidence is with the pound. Is it a weak? Are people have they got no confidence, or have they got fairly strong confidence? So I think for us to get through those levels, there could well be something fairly significant, and if that's the case, then it should keep going. And like you, I like that bar. I think that bar looks quite interesting to me.
It does indeed. I may just replace that. I'll see what the first couple of hours of London does, and then I'll make a call on that. But perhaps I can trade that candle again. We may well look at that. The other, I actually am in a long, unfortunately, at this stage on the pound, because on the daily bar, this was exactly the same trade, really, and I did cut my risk because of that. I actually traded this bar here as a long. Again, bouncing off the trade line or trend line. I wouldn't really call that a reversal pattern. It's kind of tried, but it didn't really give us one. And then the higher low. So that's what I'm trading there. It is exactly the same scenario going back the other way with the lower high. This one not conclusive, but very low risk. Haven't got much in it. Why is my stop loss there is the question that I have for myself. That's kind of in a weird spot. Maybe I made a mistake. Or did I trade on the 4-hour chart? Entry here. I've got no idea. What have I done, Ash?
Well, where is your stop? Oh, I see. Isn't that because it's kind of a high low and you put it under the higher low?
Yeah, I have. I've traded the candle. If I've traded the candle, it should be under here.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
A different time frame, maybe you traded it on?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm looking for, but I can't see how I would have. Might have traded it there, but no. It would only have been in the daily or the 4-hour. I don't know. Don't know what I've done. That's kind of weird. I mean, it looks like I've traded that bar there, but I've put my stop in the wrong place. That's what it looks like to me. As I say, 3 days ago, 4 days ago is a long, long time. Okay, that kind of makes sense. No, it doesn't. No, sorry, I can't help you. I've got no idea why I put my stop loss there.
So what would you do? Would you move it now, or would you just leave it because you had a good reason?
No, because that adds a risk then. If I were to do that, well, if I put it in the right place, there's the risk I've taken at 55 pips, and I'd have to move it to 720. That's increasing my risk by half. And I don't want to do that. Not at this point. If I cop a loss, I cop a loss. It's not a big stake trade, so no big deal. But I will still be looking for that because we do have still double bottom and a pair of higher lows here. But as you say, it's tough to be confident on a direction on this cross at the moment. Really is. I kind of thought that this was a bit of a statement returning back to the bulls. Then you've got a kind of right shoulder formed here, come off, hasn't reached support. I found a few reasons to think this could go long. And then I looked at this confluence area here. Yeah, this is it. So, I had enough reasons, but I've got absolutely no idea why I've got my stops there. Maybe I've trailed them.
You might, yeah. Did you do that sometimes?
I haven't taken any profit, I can assure you. But maybe I've just trailed it up to here for some reason. I'll have to go and have a look at my signals because I actually sent that out as a trade call. Anyway, it is what it is. So, I don't know. Nigel Farage apparently is going to vote for the UK in the European elections. As well, I understand it.
Yeah.
Does that have any effect at all?
Yeah, I mean, potentially it could in the long term. I think it's quite. It may not have in the short term, but what's quite interesting is that Nigel Farage does seem to have a bit of a groundswell of support over here right now, going into the European
that's what we're hearing over here.
But the issue for the government isn't Nigel Farage necessarily having that groundswell. It's more the fact that he's taking it away from the government, and the government are just, the markers are incredibly weak for them. We had the local elections, which they got pretty obliterated in, even more so than the opposition. They got obliterated in that. And now Nigel Farage is kind of starting to take support away from them as well. So there does seem to be a bit of a right movement over here for leaving the EU, and Nigel Farage does embody that. So it won't necessarily have a huge effect on the currency early doors, I wouldn't have thought. But maybe as time plays out, we might actually start to see this lack of confidence in the government continue to filter through. And lack of confidence in both main parties can continue to filter through. So where this where Brexit has really been this unprecedented event that we've had in this country, we're really starting to see that that politics may well change. At the minute we've got this first past the post system. And that would be one of the first things I suspect to be under pressure. if Nigel Farage was to win significantly, and maybe the Lib Dems get a few seats as well. So I think if the UK continue to show a lack of confidence in the main parties, then you think that something's got to give. You know, whether it's one of the main parties or not, whether they call a general election or not, I don't know, but something's got to give.
Yeah, I wonder how that. Yeah, it's a wait and see game, I suppose. And
yeah, it is. It is going to be a wait and see game. But the issue that we've got really right now is that we are probably going to be headed into a period of uncertainty about Theresa May because of the lack of confidence within, with her own party. You know, there's a huge lack of confidence with her. So if she gets ousted, where does that leave us? And if that is going to be the case, then it's going to be very unlikely that the pound can continue to strengthen or hold an area if she's ousted. And there's that, as I say, element of uncertainty. And it's not the uncertainty of the leader. It's the uncertainty of the Brexit outcome again, because who's then going to go in and start negotiating?
Yep, beyond me, mate. That's a higher pay grade than I've got, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but it's depending on who wins, it might end up being a staunch Brexiteer, which may well still see the UK crash out of the EU without a deal. I mean, this is what Nigel Farage's party is really standing for. You know, he said his whole manifesto is based upon the fact that we were promised by the government and the opposition that we'd be leaving the EU on the 29th of March, and that hasn't happened. And now we should be, by rights, ripped out of the club and not be, harking on about trying to get a deal. The deal hasn't been done, and if there's no deal done, the next default should be that we go to WTO rules. And I'm surprised, really, because I thought that Nigel Farage and his popularity would have weakened somewhat over the course of the last 2 years as Brexit starts to unfold, but that hasn't happened. You know, that isn't the case. Nigel Farage is still as popular, if not more popular than ever, which tells me that the country may not have had the dynamic shift in opinion about Brexit that I thought it had done.
Mm-hmm.
Very confusing times, mate. Very confusing times. Yeah. But we should watch it for a barometer, because if there is a second referendum, Nigel Farage getting into the European Parliament with a majority of MEPs will give us a bit of an indication of which way people are going to vote.
Okay, well, let's hope we do.
Yeah.
I'm sick of saying it. Let's just get it over and done with. Okay, let's talk about risk on, risk off.
Yes.
Yen seems to be proving its worth as a safe haven in the last couple of weeks, and you were talking about this a week or so ago, and that seems to be coming to pass. Can we trade that, or are we waiting on retracements at the moment?
Well, yes, you could. I mean, it's one of those. I think that that now the move has not only started but really got established. You'd have to suspect that the yen is probably too late, and we just have to accept it. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking here at the Aussie yen, and I do see that there's a little bit more room to the downside here. But it starts to become more of an intraday trade than anything else. I'll be interested to know what the color of the super trend was on this one, on the wave rider, because the wave riders provided some pretty good opportunities to the Aussie to the upside, but I don't know whether it would have the same effect to the downside. And actually,
I can find that for you.
I beg your pardon?
I'll see if I can find that for you.
Yeah, if you've got the template.
Super trend Aussie yen, is it? Is that what you want?
Aussie yen, yeah. Just see what part of the super trend was.
Bear with me 2 seconds.
While you're doing that, let's have a look at some of the other yen crosses as well, because from what I saw. If we have a look at the dollar yen as well, in actual fact, and this does start to become very interesting, or more interesting today. Dollar yen, the same sort of thing. Now, where are we with dollar yen? Well, we are at a level of support, and so far, the pace of the move to the downside has slowed. And if we are, or I suppose I say we, but I really mean myself. If I am saying that the FTSE 100 is a buy because we are in a buy zone and there seems to be a little bit of slowing in the momentum to the downside, I have to say this has got to be have the same analytical outcome for me, where we're also in a buy zone on the dollar yen, and this looks very, very similar to the way the FTSE looks. In actual fact, I'll just toggle a little bit between the two so you can see what I mean. The gaps here, and the FTSE 100 has managed to carve out this area down here, back to the dollar yen, if I can find it. Not so easy on my laptop because I'm not so familiar with how the program looks. Same sort of thing, we're another gap here where that confidence just started to dissipate away, and then we just cascade into the downside, but then getting caught down here again. So similar in a way that both the FTSE and the yen and the dollar yen have found some support, and it would suggest that this is going to be an area that some of those buyers are going to be starting to step up. Whether they win the battle or not is another question, but it does seem to me like a pretty obvious area that the orders have been placed in the market, and we would start to see some of those bigger players start to come back into the game here. Maybe taking it up back to the gap, which would be the obvious area, where this gap is in the currency. The obvious area for the short is 110.80. But so right now, the kind of most obvious thing is that we would start to move back into this area. Now, I'm not saying that we'll get there, but that would be a potential target back up to that point, which is again about another 95 pips. Interestingly,
but again, it's probably a trade wars play as well. We've got to hang on to see how it pans out, I think, don't we?
Yeah, and this is where it becomes again a question of timing. Because if we were to wait for the next positive announcement from the trade war scenario, then we're probably going to miss a chunk of the move here. But by the same token, if we don't, then we could be getting we could get caught in a trade in the wrong direction. But I think with some pretty good money management, trading in this area would be a pretty good shout.
Do you think we're going to get any good news out of trade wars?
No, I don't. I think this thing is probably going to be something which is going to last and last and last. And the reason that I think it's probably more prevalent now and more significant now is that Donald Trump is chasing an election next year. So he will probably do what is more damaging to the economy to get his result. I think Donald Trump owns enough businesses to not want the stock market to be plummeting like it is, but there might be a bigger fish for him and maybe to catch, and maybe that is the presidency. So we're not far enough away. We're close enough now for, I think, him to probably hold his nerve.
He is running again, I take it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He is running again, and what he's trying to show everybody is that he will be tough on China, and no other president, no other candidate will be tough on China. So
no matter what it takes or what it
costs. Do you know what dawned on me the other day? We have and the reason I thought about it is because I'm currently sitting in Singapore, and it made me think of the UK, the British Empire, and right up until 1942. The British Empire was the second largest country. Britain was the second largest country in terms of economic status. Against it's us and America. We were in the top two. I think we probably would have maybe even exchanged size even at some points during that period. But we were in the top two nations in the world. Now we are now fifth, or maybe even we'll drop down to sixth in the next year or so with India coming up. But we are now the fifth largest economy fifth largest nation for economically in the world. And over the course of the last 60 years of the previous century, the British colonies just started to just disappear. And one of the reasons, if you read into the history of Singapore, the Battle of Singapore, which the British Army and the Allies lost to Japan, then you start to read between the lines that ultimately the empire just spread themselves too thin. They were fighting wars on every front. They were in Russia trying to fight some sort of Bolshevik movement. They were trying to fight Germany. They were, having to kind of look over in Asia to try and fend off the Japanese. And the point is, I think you could go through any point in history and look at when empires start to diminish, and the Roman Empire, right back to the Roman Empire, you could look at all of these different empires and see when they start to diminish. And the big thing is, it's when they get so bloated and they have so many different eyes all over the place to try and fend off all the enemies that they spread themselves too thin, and then there's a bit of a collapse. Now Britain's dropped from 2 to 5, which doesn't sound like a huge collapse, but it is a collapse of sort. And now, if we think about where we are now, Donald Trump is fighting China. He's fighting Iran. He's fighting the European Union, when it comes down to the next potential sanctions. So, and he's fighting North Korea. So he is really spreading America very, very thin. Now, I'm not saying that America is all of a sudden going to collapse, but you have to look through history and say, are there any historical points that we can draw on to say what may happen next? And if the United States were worried about China as a force, I think they should be more worried about the fact that they are probably too bloated and have too many eyes in different places to actually fight off that force.
I was reading an incredible. It just blew me away. I don't know where I read it either. It might have been in one of the online trading articles, but it was a quote from Trump, and he was talking. I think he was talking about China.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't remember these things, because it just blew me away. It's called craft. Can't remember a flaming thing. And he said, you guys are carrying too much debt. And I thought, what?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Are you absolutely serious saying that?
Yeah.
Is that not the pot calling the kettle black?
Well, undoubtedly, yeah. I mean, he's kind of he's certainly kind of like firing some bullets there that he probably doesn't really have in his gun, does he?
Absolutely not. That's like the Emperor's New Clothes thing.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. And that's got to come back to bite him in the ass at some stage.
Oh, mate, do you know what I was about to say? There's enough people that are informed now to know the state of the American economy to not pay too much heed. But then my second thought was, Donald Trump says all sorts of ridiculous things, and nobody seems to bat an eyelid. So I don't get half the stuff that happens with Donald Trump. But he's certainly he's added some color to this world, and he's added some color to trading, certainly. But
he certainly done that.
I can't pick from one time to the next how people are going to react to his his ridiculous things, because what he will probably come back and say, "Oh, fake news." That he'll have some ridiculous, childish playground answer that covers it.
Absolutely.
It's like I don't know if you've ever seen Dumb and Dumber, but when they don't want to hear anything, they put their hands over their ears and start singing really loudly. But you've got no answer for it. Even as an adult, if another adult was to do that to you, what are you going to say? There's certain things that you can't win, and interestingly, it always seems to come back to playground tactics.
Yeah, an argument with Donald Trump's one of those things you can't win. I find him absolutely incredibly entertaining, because 1 minute a little rocket man over there, and the next minute it comes away from a meeting that supposedly went well, which didn't. And great guy. We
How can you trust?
Really struck up a friendship, and what a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And that's that seems to be what he can. He's based his whole, possibly his whole career, but certainly his whole presidential career on.
Yeah, spin. I mean, any great businessman is a great spin doctor. There's no question about that.
Yeah,
because they're super salesmen at the end of the day.
This is the sad fact of life, isn't it? Is that the best people don't necessarily rise to the top. It's the people that can sell themselves that rise to the top.
In a capitalist world, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to all these artists, the likes of Madonna, Taylor Swift, and you compare those to people that are genuinely great, Stevie Wonder or Freddie Mercury, the real talented people. And it's not that the Madonna and Taylor Swift aren't good, but they're not great. And that there are probably people out there that are much more gifted, but they're just not very good at selling themselves. Where those guys are brilliant at it.
Yep. They got that marketing machine going and know how to use it, know how to flaunt it.
Yeah, and Donald Trump's the same.
Yep.
Now, I'm looking at this FTSE right now. I don't know if you got my chart or your chart on, but I'm looking at this FTSE because the FTSE is just starting to step into a potential buy for me here. I am definitely looking to get in. I need about another 5 or 6 pips to the downside, and I'm going to trigger a long. I want to make sure that the futures don't trigger me in too expensively because they are different to the cash. So when you guys, if any of you guys are trading AXI, you've got to make sure that you put your 0 point number. But if you're trading on Royal, then you just go straight in with a number. So there's with AXI you're going to do decimals, but with the other one you're not. So I'm looking for. I probably the low here is at 47. So I'm comfortable enough to go in probably at 57, and we're currently at 66. So if this comes down just a little bit further, then I will take the trade. Let me just double check to make sure that my levels are right here. Actually, that does suggest. That suggests bounce point here. The hourly suggests a little bit lower. Let's see if we can get 57. Yeah, let's see if we can get just a little bit lower. The 4 hourly actually suggests that we might be there already, which is a slight issue. What is this saying? Yeah, I'm going to wait for this number. I'll wait for this number. I mean, I'm watching this bar right now form, and I'm thinking, well, there are orders going in here because you can see them, but just a little bit of a surge down here and create a bit of a gap, and we can trade this.
All right, I'll give you a bit of a break and do some currencies, which we really haven't been around the grounds on. And we'll come. You're not going to place that before the bottom of the hour, eh? Or are you? You probably.
If it comes, then yes, but I will shout if it's looking unlikely. I won't be trading it until it gets to my level.
Cool. Okay, so let's start with pound yen, where we had this descending triangle. I tend to trade those to break to the flat side, if you like. Descending, break to the downside. That's tends to be the way I play them. No opportunity here to do that. Up here was the only chance. Maybe trading that bar there, a little bit tough, but not for me. I need to see a retest here. And for that reason, I've probably got a slightly bullish intraday outlook, maybe back to the weekly pivot. So let's take a look at that. The 30-minute chart is generally full of opportunities that present from a support or a resistance trade line area. So let's put those in. Yeah, it could be that one, but I think there's a better one. That's the one. Okay, so you can see we're now at a soft support level, and I'll be looking for that to give me a signal that's about to go long. How? Break, consolidate, back above, retest, entry, long. That's how I'd be looking to play that at the moment. If the resistance area were to come into play, it's probably too late. because I'd need to see these highs broken and retested before I got back into that. So this is really the only opportunity I will have near term to get into that long. So I just need that to break and consolidate. Euro Aussie, for no particular reason, I'm going through these just at random. I don't have any particular interest other than let's see what's happening. It's Monday, by the way, and that's generally what I tend to do. Euro Aussie, look at this chart, and I think it's too far gone for me to trade long, and we are at a resistance level, so I would be only thinking this is going to bounce short at this point in time. Same again, really, at the end of the day, but I would be looking for some form of reversal pattern there on a smaller time frame. Again, let's go to the 30-minute. And there you can see that we are at the double top. We've got a reversal bar there. I don't trade a reversal bar standing on its own. It's got to have some reason for me to think this is about to go. And that will come probably in the form, depending on what this candle does, of course. It's got 4 minutes to go. If it were to close pretty much as it is, then the high is intact, and I'd be looking for a lower high in order to trade that short. Until I get that, this will just have to hang and wait for me. Euro pound, I traded this bar on Friday as a short, been waiting for a short, waiting for an opportunity to get back short Euro pound and placed an order below this bar and underneath the monthly pivot. As you can see, prices had nothing to do with that. That was going to be my first opportunity to short. My second opportunity to short will come from here. And if price is fit to go to that area, then that's exactly what I'll look to do. As a false break, I'd like to play it. So break, consolidate, back
underneath. I've just traded that, mate.
All right, mate. Go back to you.
Okay, so it's going to be slightly different on the. I don't know how you guys want to see it. Whether you want to see it on, probably better for you guys to see it on this chart because it is the cash. So I've just taken the trade near the lows. Not quite sure. It might just come down a little bit further. Now it's only gone in half on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for this to come back. I'm going to have to look at the other chart. I'm really sorry, but this. I don't like the colours on that. So mark this area off. It may come down a little bit further, but I quite like this area generally. I did see a little bit of a bounce point going on here. So that's the reason I took it maybe a little bit earlier than coming in down at this point, even though this was the area we marked off anyway. So this is where I'm looking for a bounce. Now, there's two ways that we can look at this. The first way is to look for the longer term move, which leads us back into this area. Now, I want to do that, but I'm a little bit reticent to do that because of the weakness, the weakness that we've seen, in the market. And it might be one of those that if we can get some profit out of this, that we should take the profit. And now the profit, the obvious kind of profit area is the gap. Not too worried about the daily pivot. I don't think. I think the daily pivot is going to play less of a role now we're in this this kind of sideways consolidation as it steps up and down. So I'm gonna see if we can get the gap. That's going to be the first point, which is going to be somewhere around about this this weekly pivot. So we could be looking at 70 or so pips to the upside. So that's the first target. Now, if we are going to go, if you want to be a bit more aggressive, then obviously you could be looking at up at these areas here, which is more like 150 pips, and that's going to be quite a seismic difference, if you like. In actual fact, I look for more like 100 pips to the upside. So we're even looking at 100 pips or the weekly pivot, which is somewhere around the 70 pip mark. I am also going to leave this on the table if it starts to break down. And I've only got half on here. So if it comes down to this point, then I'll probably put another 1.5 on. If it comes down to this, but in actual fact, I might go in another half or maybe 3/4 and then add the rest if it comes down one more zone there. And then at that point, I can put stops at these lows. So I can really kind of be thinking about this. This is a kind of a scaling scenario, but it's not really sort of going to help you necessarily with your numbers of how much you're going to put on. But what you should be looking at is specific, because you should really be able to think of this in number formats yourself. But let me just tell you the levels that you should be looking at for taking the trade out of the market. Now it looks like 69.90, so we're about 150 pips away from entry here, and we will be going in again around about what looks like 60 pips under where we are now. 80 pips on where we are now. So we've got an 80 pip dip. We're going again. The closing of the trade is going to be around about 150 pips below on both those. So that's the way we're going to try and play it, and then we're going to try and play it back up to these areas, or if it's intraday, we'll play it to the gap. If it looks like it's taking a little bit longer, then we'll look for a deeper swing to the downside and a deeper swing back to the upside, and look for this as a right shoulder to the 72.65. So that is done, mate. That is on, and we are in the market.
Okay, mate. Happy days. I'll go back to what I was doing. I've just noticed one that is interesting but very high risk. I'll show you guys what it is. It's actually Aussie Kiwi, and it is a setup that is long here. Now, the question is, are we going to take this trade? Why is it super high risk? Because the daily pivot has already given us a resistance level, and to trade straight into the daily pivot without profit is a risk. But we have already broken the daily pivot and retested it, and we've had a close above it. So that makes it a little bit different. The problem is I still don't have a room for profit before the high of the day, and that's something I don't like to do. So I'm actually going to stay out of this reluctantly, because I can see this actually breaking to the high side and going to the weekly pivot. How could I trade it? Well, if I'm patient enough, there's only one line, and it's this one. If I'm patient enough and wait, I may get. You could use that. You could use that. You could probably even come down here if you wanted to, but it's all the same thing. If I'm prepared to wait, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 hours or something, maybe even tomorrow morning, I might get a better opportunity to trade this. But at that point in time, well, the daily pivot shouldn't move too far, should it? You wouldn't have thought. Count that candle out. It's probably going to go to here. Yeah, look, it's a tough one. I'm keen to get in there, and I am keen to trade Aussie Kiwi long, as anybody who's...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you know, I wanted to talk to you about this one, because this one was the one that was a bit confounding. How the Kiwi strengthened.
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
No idea.
It's odd, isn't it?
Yep. Very
odd. It's a real kind of real quandary, I think, that I was having about that one.
Yeah, look, the market has to catch up with this, and look, there is a number coming out for the Aussie. I don't know if it's tomorrow. In fact, I can't put the Forex Factory up because it crashed me out.
Oh yeah, let me check it, mate.
There's employment figures coming.
Let me just I'll take the screen just so you can see it.
Okay.
Here we go. So this is tomorrow's news. Nothing anywhere around there.
No, it might be on Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not sure.
Yeah, wage price index on Wednesday. Westpac
and employment numbers as well.
Let's see what else we got. Oh, unemployment. Yeah, it looks like a big week for the Aussie. You're absolutely right.
So they're going to be the two factors that the RBA is going to take into consideration for next month, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if there's a miss there, then you can probably guarantee. I don't know about guarantee. You could really factor in that the RBA will cut interest rates next month, unless there's good news there, So I guess the market is waiting on that to go for the Aussie. But why the Kiwi rallied? Absolutely no idea.
Yeah, it's strange because
On an interest rate cut.
We were looking at that, weren't we? Like thinking about whether we could trade it or not.
Yeah, look, here's the interest rate announcement here somewhere. Here. And it rallied. Go figure.
Yeah. Very, very, very peculiar. I mean, was that the same across the board? I haven't. I have to confess, looked at the rest of the Kiwi against the other currencies. So was that the same across the board?
Kiwi yen. There. So it's the same chart basically.
Amazing. I mean, yen.
It's back to where it should be, at least, I suppose, on the back of an interest rate cut. But in the interim, it rallied. Maybe it just took out some stops. I don't know. But I sometimes you just can't. I can't explain those.
Yeah.
The only thing you could really say, I suppose, is that leading into the interest rate cut, we were coming off, at a fairly substantial rate, and that's probably, it was factored in, it was keyed in, it was priced in, and that's why I suppose there was a little bit of profit taking, rallied a little bit, but you can see now that the trajectory is back to where it needs to be, or should be. One would anticipate. That's against the yen. The yen strengthening, as we know, it's the strongest currency at the moment. It's really interesting. Oh, there's your Aussie yen. You want the super trend, mate? There it is.
Oh,
yeah. Changed.
Okay. Aussie yen super trend changed, and what were we? Oh, it's quite late in the picture, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean that high test. Yeah, there's a high test there. Does that high test fall into super trend cap?
Wow, I think my house is just about to fall down. Hang on a sec. The wind here is unbelievable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 150k or some bloody thing.
Is that unusual?
150 would be unusual. That's sort of like cyclone weather.
Yeah.
I'm probably exaggerating by about 100k. But
yeah.
It sounds like it outside. Sorry, the high test bar. What was
that did that fall into the super trend going red?
Oh, okay. Looks like it, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. Okay. So that would have been an entry there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an entry there. It's kind. Let's say it's kind. Well, maybe it's not too long actually in the tooth, because it had to break out of that range, and maybe that high test bar touches that range, that the breakout of the range, doesn't it?
Yep. Break, retest, lower, high.
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I think taking that bar would have been okay, and I think that that there could be some further moves. I think the fact that we do have such extremes in our price movements from almost from one day to the next is the one concern about trading any of these for longer periods. And I think if you've got the entry, you probably want to start managing it on a shorter term time frame.
Yeah, look, this one's really interesting because the yen is strengthening substantially. The Aussie's on a precipice. You can't see the Aussie rallying. I can't see the Aussie rallying for any reason. The only reason I think it's even holding its head above water is because of the commodity prices, in particular iron ore, which is so if that were to change, then I think the Aussie's got a real problem. And I mean, mind you, it's had a problem since the beginning of 2018. It's starting to get to a point where it's in deep water, though.
Yeah.
If it gets down to here, it's kind of bye-bye Aussie for a while. Where can we pick that back up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talking of iron ore and a commodity, that there's also WTI to take into account as well. The huge rally to the upside, obviously, that we've been witnessing over the course of the last few months. but just come off a little bit. And the story about America parking some ships in Iran, I think, is going to be some kind of it's going to be a bit of a side story, isn't it, when it comes down to oil? But oil looks like it's just starting to weaken again now.
Yep, fun and games.
Let's just come off there. Yeah, short around about 62.60 looks about right to me. Where else? What else we got? Gold. We should always mention a bit of gold. Oh, actually, mate, we got to talk gold in a moment, because I've just remembered. Have you seen this? Now, I don't know if that is properly expressed or not, but this is a daily chart.
Oh, wow, Bitcoin. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's doubled in price over the last month.
Wow.
So any investors that were, I don't know whether it's ballsy or not with Bitcoin, but any investors that were maybe wise enough to get into Bitcoin anywhere down here when they saw this higher low, have just potentially, almost doubled their money if they actually bought the actual currency. Itself, they've doubled their money. So who knows?
And those who got in at 20,000 and have held on have probably just taken a couple of steps back from the cliff.
Yes, I think so. Interestingly, we look around the other cryptocurrencies, Ethereum and XRP. Not really the same movement in many respects. I don't think. No, that's not going to double your money. No, the XRP's got a long way to go. I don't know what it is with the Bitcoin story. I was listening, briefly earlier on to reasons behind the rally, and the fact that it was on Bloomberg, I think, is probably quite telling. But yeah, as you say, they probably stepped back from the cliff. This gap here and this bar currently is looking like a shooting star. And that is a classic shooting star, because there's a gap, and really you need the gap for the shooting star. Now that could have bearish connotations if this does end the week, forming something of a that looks like a high test bar of some sort. But anything that looks like a shooting star here, a doji, anything like that, would suggest that we would probably be coming back, somewhat. And from here on in, it's kind of anybody's guess what happens to Bitcoin, because I think you could make the case certainly now for the upside, but when we look at this on a longer term time frame, so namely the monthly is still in a downtrend. It hasn't broken through this level. It needs to get through 7,700 significantly. Close above that level would change the state of play with Bitcoin. So as I say, I think people are pretty brave to getting down here. I don't see why.
No, and that's the thing. There is no why, as far as I can tell. Do the commentators say anything about why?
Well, when it comes down to most of the guests on Bloomberg, they don't have enough specialist guests that come in and talk about Bitcoin. Because the truth is, most of the guests that they'll bring on will be talking about a wide range of subjects. But most of those people don't trade in Bitcoin. They're not even interested in Bitcoin. You and I aren't interested in Bitcoin. We find it an interesting point of conversation, but we're not interested in trading it, and we don't care that it's kind of going where it's going. It's just it's kind of fascinating, and it's a little side story of the market, so it's worth mentioning. But
if I had a couple in my back pocket, I'd be really interested. But
yeah. Things may be different if we had some skin in the game. There's no two ways about that. But it means that the people that go on Bloomberg to talk about Bitcoin probably don't really discuss. They probably don't really have knowledge in other areas of the financial markets. So they're literally going to be on for 5 minutes a time, or 15 minutes a time, and then they're out of there. So the commentator did mention something, but I sort of got the back end of it, so I didn't manage to absorb what he was saying. I think I remember him saying that it wasn't like the last rally because there's some lack of support, and I think that he was suggesting that this may well be a flash in the pan.
Okay, time will tell. And as you say, I'm not that interested. It's a passing interest, but yep. What will be with Bitcoin as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
All right. I better just finish off these 30-minute charts as we get towards the top of the hour, I suppose.
Yeah, and then we'll just quickly discuss gold after that, mate. We'll come back to gold.
Yep.
So.
Cool. Okay, so the Aussie, we've determined that the Aussie is under and remains under pressure. And I don't see any way to trade that long at present, nor do I have the inclination to do so. It looks to be at recent support, no question, but it also looks to be through most of the strong support underneath it, going back quite some time. It's got a little bit to go before it reaches here, which is around about, let's call that 68.50. That's 120 pips away. So I think this has got a little bit to go before we start to think there's a potential long here. It really looks to have broken out of the range. It's broken and retested that range. Yeah, I think it's just in a spot of bother, frankly. And I'd rather be in it short than long, that's for sure. Trading it short, yeah, bit of a tough ask from there, I've got to say. It needs to come back to kind of here-ish, back to 70. I don't know that it can do that, to be fair. So I think Aussie is sell the rallies at the moment.
Mm.
The Kiwi, it's got a little bit more support underneath it at the moment, the Kiwi, but it's got more reason, funnily enough, to fall than does the Aussie. And we go back to the interest rate cut of last week, of course. This support level goes where we are, I guess, the 65, 70-ish. If this goes, and you can see it held up last week at that level. If that goes, then there's probably a fair bit in it as well, similar to the Aussie. But I don't know if you can get in there. You probably can get in there at the moment. As how? Let me see. We've got a support trend line, but we really don't have any. I suppose there's potential for a resistance one. So I'll put that in and call that my opportunity, if you like. Pull back to here, in particular if it broke, found the weekly pivot again, got back underneath it, retested it. That would be my my entry short. I can't see me trading this long anytime soon. Similar to the Aussie, to be fair, seems to be under a lot of pressure. Aussie Kiwi, I continue to say this really has confounded me. I can't understand why, fundamentally in particular, that the Aussie is not outperforming the Kiwi. Based on those interest rate not differentials, they're now the same, but the Aussie has been at a differential disadvantage, if you like, interest rate wise, since well, I can't remember whenever the Kiwi raised from 1.5 to 1.75, which is like yonks ago now. It was last year sometime, but now they're exactly the same interest rate, and for that reason, I would have thought that the decline, if you like, in the Aussie Kiwi, which is now picking up, there's no two ways about that, you would have thought that had a little bit more upside in it. And I continue to hold that point of view. And if I find a way to trade this long, then that probably is what I will do. There is a candle there that looks quite interesting right now. This one. But that said, we're in a pretty precarious spot also. It might be worth a little shot, you know. What's that 4-hour chart? What's it going to do tomorrow? Yeah, look, technically, if you look at this chart, you're thinking, oh my God, this is on its way down. And yeah, you could certainly be forgiven for thinking that. Look, it's not as clear as a bell, but it's kind of there. It's a higher low. The weekly pivot annoys me. I'm going to let it go.
Yeah.
Maybe we can pick it up off the monthly pivot if we can get down to there, and that'll be the real shot that we need, that real support area. This one's kind of hanging in no man's land. So let's get it down to the monthly pivot and we can look to trade it then. EuroCAD, wow, that would have looked interesting. Yeah, it did on the hourly chart last hour. But again, you know, trading straight into the daily pivot and weekly pivot, it's just not on my radar. So I've got to wait until that goes and a retest. So a close below these pivots here, then a retest of maybe the trade line or something like that, or even a lower high here now inside does get me interested. So I'll be looking at that one. EuroCAD definitely on my hit list for a little bit later. Hope it doesn't disappear before we get that opportunity. We've come back into the range, lower high. That's a great candle to trade, but not into the pivot. So I'll be waiting for another one, perhaps at the trend line. That'll be cool. Aussie yen, we spoke about that. Impossible for me to jump into this short right now. I'm looking for retracements. Let's get to the real currency, the euro. And you can see a close now back below the monthly pivot. This is on the daily charts. Enough retracement to keep trading short. Yes, but that we looked at that candle last week as a higher low. I think we were talking about it last Monday. Julian pointed out that was even tradable. And look, I didn't disagree with him, but me trading into the monthly pivot's just not a thing I do without some profit. So I'm waiting on a better opportunity to do that. I'm not sure if it's going to come, but I see this is the next level. Yes, I see the monthly pivot here. Did I say a close below? I didn't mean to say a close below because it's not a close below. In fact, we're coming back to retest that. Maybe that provides us with the opportunity if we come back to retest the monthly pivot. So let's look at the 4-hour chart on that basis. Back to here, weekly pivot, monthly pivot sandwiched together. So another higher low here does really get me interested. So I'll be looking at that to trade long the euro. Interesting. Double bottom, higher low, higher low, higher low. It's sneaking its way up, isn't it? Kiwi yen, I don't know why I've got that on my chart. I don't look at it. Finally, 3 to go, actually. Dollar yen. We talked about this a little bit earlier. At a soft level of support right now. No engulfing bar. Weekly pivots come down a fair bit. We did retest. Well, we didn't really on the daily chart retest that trade line. We just broke it and kept going. I'd say yes, we're looking for some pullback. And weekly pivot appears to be obvious. I just don't know if we're going to get enough room to do that. As you can see, it's in a very, very consolidation, or it's consolidating quite strongly if there's such a thing to do. I don't like it right now. I think I'll just leave that alone. Euro yen. Interesting. If we talk about the yen strengthening the euro, I'm expecting to go long, then that puts me into total confusion on this pair from a fundamental point of view. Don't really have a reversal bar here, so I'm not that keen to trade a higher low, but if it does present, we'll certainly have a look at it. Are we willing to trade it short? I don't really see a need to do that either, to be fair. So again, go back to what I just said. Euro, I'm expecting to go long. Yen, we know is going long. It's a tough one. Which one reverses first, or which one retraces first? And finally, Aussie CAD. We had a look at the oil chart. Let's have another look at the oil chart. Yeah, it's trying to get through the daily pivot. It's closed above the weekly. Maybe oil's back on the way up, but that's too early to call. Aussie's under pressure. broken the range. Hard to be thinking anything but short here, to be fair. But with the oil price at resistance, perhaps the daily pivot can force it back. Maybe the CAD goes with it. Untested daily pivot here always gets my interest. So if we come back above this range, so the range bottom being about there somewhere, so if we can find our way back into here and then put in a higher low, maybe we can trade back up to the pivots. That's on any time frame on the 4 hour there. So I'll be probably focusing on that in the 30-minute charts a bit later. So back above here, retest, long, cut out here. So profit here, get out here. That would be my my analysis on Aussie CAD. So yeah, look, made this Monday. I'm never a keen Monday trader, but I always like to see what's about. And there are a couple of things there that I will have a look at a little bit later.
Okay, mate. All right, sounds good. The FTSE has continued to push to the downside, but it's not too much of a concern right now. We're just getting near these lows again. Closing under these lows will probably drive the market down, but as I say, that's not a huge problem. I quite like this price that we're at. I'd quite like to see this hourly bar just kind of now just shoots up a little bit and kind of get back into this area. That would fill me with a bit more confidence. But it is maybe the Monday effect playing out today. No, we're all good, mate. All good. Have I lost you now? You still there? We have lost Jeff. Okay, we lost Jeff. We may well have to shut down the show because I can't actually message him and do anything with the one screen. So I will leave you guys with the fact that the FTSE is at the low and still an attractive buying opportunity. And also, before we do go, let's just quickly check. I just want to quickly check gold because this could be indicative of what may happen for the rest of the day. Yeah, it looks like gold is probably in a bit of a downtrend as well. So gold doesn't seem to be the safe haven area that we would expect with a weakening market. And the dollar yen, just very briefly before we leave, is holding where it is. It's holding fairly firm. So, yeah, just to finally reiterate, we are long the FTSE 100 around about the 71.95 or 7200 level, and we will hold on to the weekly pivot or the next available high. Thanks for listening, guys. I think we'll be back later on anyway with Paul and Julian. If you are in the free show, I will see you then. If not, we'll be back same trade time, same trade channel tomorrow. Have a good one.